welcome to or welcome back to another episode of Boss Up and Glow Up with Lexi Sample. I'm your host, Lexi, of course. And in this podcast, we talk so much about mental health, how to glow up, and just how to be your best possible self that you can be. And it's perfect because we just started a new year. We all want that fresh reset. We all have goals we want to achieve. And I feel like this podcast is perfect if you have some goals that you want to hit. And today we're going to be talking about why your hyper independence is a trauma response. Now, being independent is all fine and good. I find myself to be very independent, but hyper independence is a whole different thing that we don't really hear enough about because if you're listening to this, there is a good chance you've been praised for being hyper independent your whole entire life because you're strong, you're self sufficient, you don't need anyone, you always handle things on your own, you always figure it out. And on the outside, that looks like confidence, that looks like resilience, that looks like discipline, it looks like independence. But what nobody talks about is hyper independence is often not empowerment. It's protection from something. And today, I want to gently unpack why hyper independence is a trauma response and how it forms, how it shows up in relationships, and what healing from it actually looks like without turning into someone who feels weak, needy, or just out of control. Because healing does not mean becoming dependent on others, it means becoming safe with connection. Hyper independence isn't just saying, oh, I love my alone time, I love my space, I don't really want to be bothered, I like my peace. It's feeling uncomfortable asking for help, feeling safer doing everything by yourself, struggling to receive support without feeling guilty about it, feeling irritated when somebody offers to help you with something, or believing if I don't do it, it's not going to get done right. Equating needing someone with being weak, trusting yourself, but never trusting anybody else. It's not just independence, it's over reliance on yourself because relying on others felt unsafe. And here's the key distinction. Healthy independence says, I can do this on my own, and if I need help, I can reach out to somebody. Hyper independence is, I can only rely on myself because relying on other people just never works out and it's always wrong. Hyper independence almost always forms early, not because you were born strong, not because you were too mature for your age, not because you wanted to be self sufficient, but because at some point you learned that relying on other people didn't feel safe. And this is very important. Hyper independence doesn't come from one big, huge, traumatic event most of the time. It comes from small patterns, patterns of being emotionally unseen, patterns of inconsistency, patterns of having to figure things out on your own over and over and over again. And for a lot of people, it starts with emotional neglect. And emotional neglect isn't always obvious. You have no idea that it's happening most of the time. It doesn't always look like abuse. It often looks like your physical needs were literally met, but your emotional needs were inconvenient, ignored, or minimized. You might have been told, oh, you're fine, stop being dramatic, you're too sensitive, or figure it out, I don't have time for this right now. So you learned not to reach out, not because you didn't need comfort from others, but because reaching out didn't lead to that relief that you were looking for. And for others, it came from inconsistency. Caregivers or parents who were loving sometimes, but unavailable or unpredictable other times. So your nervous system just couldn't relax into connection. You never knew when support was going to be there or not. And when support is inconsistent, your body learns to just stop waiting for it. It learns, oh, this is unreliable. I can't depend on this. I can't count on this. I need to find a backup plan. And that backup plan became you. For some of you, hyper independence formed through parentification. You had to grow up too fast. You became the emotional support, the mediator, the responsible one, the one who never got to fall apart. So Needing wasn't an option because everyone else was already leaning on you. And here's the thing that no one really talks about. When a child learns that their needs create stress, their nervous system doesn't say, "Oh, I deserve more than this." It says, "All right, let me just stop needing." That's not a choice, that's adaptation. And adaptation is intelligent. Your body was learning how to survive the environment that it was in. So, slowly, quietly, without even realizing it, your system formed these rules. Maybe like don't ask, don't expect, don't rely on others, don't get your hopes up because hope makes disappointment hurt a lot more. That's why we always tell ourselves, "Oh, don't get your hopes up when like you really want something." That's your nervous system relying on yourself. And disappointment felt dangerous. So your body decided it's just way safer to just do it on myself. And this belief didn't form in your thoughts. You didn't sit down one day and decide to be just completely hyper independent. You didn't even know you were hyper independent. It formed in your body, in the tightening of your chest when you need something, in the discomfort you feel receiving help, in the urge to say, "I've got it," even when you really know that you don't or you're not sure if you actually can, in the anxiety that shows up when someone offers to carry part of that emotional load. Your body learned reaching leads to letdown, waiting leads to disappointment, depending on others leads to just pain. So it learned to move, to act, to solve, to just push through, to just handle everything on your own, to just survive it and just keep going. And at the time, that response made sense. It kept you functioning, it kept you from feeling the full weight of unmet needs. It helped you stay in control in an environment where control was scary. But survival strategies don't dissolve on their own. They follow you into adulthood, into relationships, into friendships, into your career, even, and into the way you relate to rest, support, and even intimacy. And unless you gently bring awareness to it, your body is going to keep living by the rules that were written in a season that you're no longer in. So here's the part that makes hyper independence really hard to let go of. It works. It actually works so well. Hyperindependence gives you control, and control feels like safety to a nervous system that learned unpredictability very early on. When you rely on yourself, nothing is left up to chance. No one can forget, no one can disappoint you, no one can let you down because you never handed them the opportunity. There's a sense of calm in that, a sense of, "I've got this," a sense of competence, a sense of steadiness. You know what to expect because you're the one doing everything. And there's relief in not reaching out to other people for help because asking means now you have to wait. And waiting means getting your hopes up. And getting your hopes up means there's a risk of disappointment, and you don't want that. So instead, you stay capable, you stay prepared, you stay emotionally self contained, you stay one step ahead of your own needs. And that protects you from rejection. If you don't need reassurance, no one can withhold it from you. If you don't ask for help, no one can say no. If you don't express hurt or pain, no one can minimize it. So, on the surface, hyper independence feels empowering and safe. But underneath that empowerment is distance. Because while you're protected from disappointment, you're also protected from connection and connecting with others. And the cost is very quiet. You might be surrounded by people and still feel so alone. You might be in relationships and still feel emotionally unseen. You might feel like you're always the one holding it together, the one giving, the one supporting, the one being strong. And no one is really showing up for you. Not because they don't give a fuck, but because they don't know how, because you never let yourself need anything, because people never got the chance to meet you there. And slowly, subtly, This reinforces the belief that you already carry. See, I really am on my own. And not because that's even true, but it's because your system never allowed another outcome to be tested. Hyper independence doesn't just disappear when you start dating, it just gets a little quieter, more socially acceptable, more disguised as maybe confidence. It can show up as attracting emotionally unavailable partners, which we talked about last week, because they don't ask much of you. They don't expect vulnerability. They don't push for closeness. And this feels so familiar to you and your nervous system. You might find yourself being low maintenance, the chill one, the understanding one. You don't ask for reassurance, even when you need it. You don't bring things up, even when it bothers you, because you don't want to seem needy. You tell yourself you're fine, even when something is bothering you and is hurting you, because expressing need feels more dangerous than suppressing it. Hyper independence also shows up as leaving other people before you get left. You might pull away at the first sign of disappointment. You might emotionally detach instead of repair things. You might tell yourself you're just protecting your peace, when really, your nervous system is just bracing for loss. And then there's the part that may surprise a lot of people. Healthy intimacy can feel suffocating to you if you're hyper independent. When someone wants to support you, checks on you, wants to be emotionally close to you, your body might tense up. It gets scared, not because something is wrong, but because that closeness feels like a threat to the system that kept you safe for all this time. Your nervous system says, "Ooh, this is unfamiliar. This is unpredictable. This requires me to be vulnerable. This is scary. I don't like it." And softening once meant getting hurt. So your body reacts before your mind can catch up. So you're going to tend to pull back, shut down, or try to rationalize it. You start telling yourself stories like, "I'm just too independent for this. I don't need anyone. I'm better off on my own." Been there, said that. And sometimes that's partly true. But underneath those stories, there's often grief. Grief for not being able to receive the kind of love that you want. Grief for always being the strong one. Grief for how much you learn to carry alone. And that grief doesn't mean that you're broken or messed up or fucked up in the head. It means a part of you is tired of surviving and wants to feel safe enough to stay. One of the deepest fears that hyper independent people carry is, if I stop being strong, everything is just going to collapse. Because strength didn't just become something you do, it became who you are as a person. You were the one who was always handling things. You were always the one that never fell apart, the one who figured it out, the one people could count on. And when strength becomes your identity, rest starts to feel scary and unsafe. Softness feels irresponsible. Leaning feels reckless. Needing feels like you're failing. So control becomes your safety net. Control over your emotions, control over your environment, control over your expectations. Because when you're always in control, nothing is able to catch you off guard. Nothing can pull the ground out from under you. Nothing can hurt you the way it once did. Self reliance became your shield. And shields are useful because they're heavy. So when someone says, "You don't have to carry this alone," your body doesn't hear relief. It hears something very risky, because the last time you loosened your grip, you had to pay for it. So the idea of letting go feels dangerous. Not emotionally uncomfortable, dangerous. And here's the misunderstanding that keeps this fear alive. And healing is not the opposite of strength. Healing does not mean becoming helpless. It doesn't mean oversharing with people who haven't earned access to you. It doesn't mean abandoning discernment. It doesn't mean losing your independence. It means something entirely different. Regulated interdependence, which is a fancy way of saying, I can rely on myself and allow others to support me. It means letting someone help you without immediately apologizing, not shrinking, not explaining, not justifying. It means expressing needs without judging yourself for having them, without calling yourself dramatic, without telling yourself that you're asking for too much. It means receiving without earning, without proving your worth first. It means trusting yourself without overfunctioning, without managing the relationship, without anticipating every possible outcome. And that's the part that feels so terrifying because control once kept you safe, but safety doesn't have to come from control forever. Healing isn't about giving up control completely, it's about not needing control to feel okay. It's about learning that you can soften without falling apart, that you can lean without collapsing, that you can rest and the world won't end. And that realization doesn't come all at once. It comes in small little moments where you don't rescue yourself immediately, where you let someone show up for you for once, where you don't rush to armor back up. And slowly, your body is learning something new. It's learning, I don't have to hold everything this tightly anymore. Healing hyperindependence is quiet. It's not dramatic, it's not cute, and it doesn't announce itself. There's no moment where you suddenly become soft or stop being capable or stop knowing how to take care of yourself. Healing happens in small, almost unnoticeable moments. It looks like pausing, but just for a second, just before automatically saying, I'm fine. That pause is everything because in that pause, you're checking in with yourself. You're asking, am I actually okay? Or am I just using this to cope with being alone? Healing looks like letting someone do something for you, even when they don't do it the way that you would or could. And that part is hard because hyper independence taught you that doing it yourself was safer than being disappointed. So when someone tries to help you imperfectly or the way that you wouldn't do something, your body just wants to take over. But healing is saying, let it be imperfect. Letting support exist without correcting it is okay. It looks like sitting with the discomfort of being supported and not rushing to reciprocate, not immediately saying, oh, I owe you one, not shrinking to make the help feel smaller, just receiving the help. And that can feel deeply uncomfortable at first because receiving requires softness, it requires you to be vulnerable, and that once felt unsafe to you. And healing also looks like not immediately rescuing yourself emotionally, not distracting the feeling away, not minimizing it, not telling yourself just to get over it, but letting yourself feel upset without fixing it right away. Letting someone witness your emotions without rushing to reassure them that you're okay. It looks like asking for help before you're completely depleted, before you hit burnout, before you hit breakdown, before you convince yourself that you don't need anything. And that's a big change because hyper independence often only allows help at crisis level. Healing invites support sooner, gently, without feeling like it's an emergency. And here's the part that matters the most: it feels awkward, it feels vulnerable, it feels so unfamiliar. Your body might tense, your chest might get tight, you might feel exposed, and unfamiliar often felt unsafe and scary at first, but discomfort is not danger. And that's what you need to keep reminding yourself. Discomfort is your nervous system just learning something new. It's learning that support doesn't always disappear, that needing doesn't always lead to shame, or that closeness doesn't always cost you yourself. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about you teaching your body that you don't have to do everything all alone anymore. This is the part I really want you to hear, not just understand, but I want you to feel it. You didn't become hyper independent because you're a cold person. You didn't become guarded because you lack depth. You didn't become self reliant because you're incapable of love. You became this way because at some point, needing wasn't met with care. And when needing isn't met, the nervous system doesn't protest, it adapts. It learns how to survive the environment that it's in. So, if you learn to stop asking, it wasn't because you were too much. It was because no one was consistently there to receive you. If you learn to handle everything alone, it wasn't because you didn't want connection. It was because connection felt unreliable. If you learn to stay composed, to stay capable, to stay strong, it was because falling apart didn't feel safe. And that adaptation worked for you. It kept you alive, it kept you functional, it kept you moving forward when stopping wasn't an option. That version of you deserves respect, not shame, not judgment. So healing doesn't ask you to reject who you once were. It asks you to thank them, to acknowledge that they did the best that they could with the resources that they had in an environment that asked way too much of them. You don't need that strategy the same way anymore. The world you're in now is different. The relationships you're choosing are now different. The capacity you have now is different. And honoring that doesn't mean you abandon your strength. It means you just loosen up your grip. It means you let yourself grow beyond survival, beyond bracing, beyond carrying everything alone. You were never too much. You were just too alone for too long. And you don't have to live like that anymore. You don't need to be less independent. You need to feel safe enough to share the load. Because true strength isn't doing everything all alone. It's knowing that you don't have to. And if this episode resonated with you, don't rush to fix yourself. Just notice. Notice where you hold everything alone. Notice where you don't ask. Notice where you brace instead of receive. Awareness is the first crack in the armor. And that is where the healing begins. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Boss Up and Glow Up with Lexi Sample. I hope this episode helped you and taught you a little bit about the difference between being independent and being hyper independent, because a lot of times we think we're just independent, but we're really hyper dependent. So I hope this helped you break that cycle, because I needed to hear this a few months ago to break that cycle, and here we are now. Now I'm sharing it with you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. Bye.